our guest speaker, Command Sergeant Major Alan Grinsteiner. Command Sergeant Major Alan Grinsteiner is the Commandant for the 164th Regiment Regional Training Institute. He has served in the Army National Guard for 28 years. He deployed to Northeast Baghdad in support of contingency operations with the 191st Military Police in 2008 to 2009. Sergeant Major Grinsteiner was awarded the Bronze Star for his role during pre- and post-surge into Sadr City. He currently resides in Devil's Lake with his wife, Kay, who's an instructor at Lake Regis State College, and has two daughters, Randy and Leah, who is a first lieutenant in the Washington National Guard, and one grandson, Rowan. Ladies and gentlemen, Command Sergeant Major Alan Grinsteiner.
Good morning, thank you, Commander. A special thank you to the VFW for allowing me to share this wonderful day. I'm sitting up here watching all the things that are happening, and I don't know where I've been. I must have been living under a rock. I'm getting kind of emotional watching all this stuff. It's not something I've seen in Bismarck very much, so you should be very proud of your community. When Mr. Fisher gave me a call several weeks ago about giving an address today, he obviously remembered his service days because he gave me very strict instructions, because in E9 with a microphone and an audience, he said 5 minutes, that's it. Mr. Fisher, I'll try to do my best to stay within them. During a Veterans Day speech, President John F. Kennedy once said, "In an age that threatens the survival of freedom, we join together to honor those who made that freedom possible." Now, more than half a century later, we still face a dangerous and challenging and unsettled world. Whether it's the crisis in the Ukraine, ISIS in Iraq or Syria, Boko Haram in Nigeria, or the Chinese building schools and other buildings on islands that are outside the recognized international boundary. The news channels are filled with chaotic examples that continue to remind us of just how fragile our peace is. However, in the middle of this chaotic storm, one thing has not changed. That's the calm of the courageous veterans who have demonstrated and continue to demonstrate the courage to sacrifice for the common good. It's for that reason that this day is so honored, and that we take a moment out of our lives to pause and reflect on their sacrifice. For most of my adult life, veterans and their stories have intrigued me. Through personal research, I've discovered that reasons for their stepping forward really didn't matter. What I did find was, through their stories, was woven a theme. The theme that veterans answered the call to serve not for personal gain, not for wealth, and not for fame. They answered the call because it was their duty. And isn't that precisely what America is all about? Isn't that the strength of America, us doing our duty? And if you look closer at their stories, you'll find that it's in that duty we find works of selfless service and sacrifice. It's really moved to characterize by how their service was performed, or where that service was. And it really doesn't matter if you try to separate those that were drafted or those that are part of the volunteer force. For all service members, the bottom line is the same. They all raised their right hand, and they swore to defend this nation and its Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. While veterans as members of different services may kid each other about their services, they all know and accept the grim reality that if they are asked to give the ultimate sacrifice, regardless of that service, they will come home draped in the same flag. And it's that flag that binds us all together. If you were looking to find out who these veterans are, you would find that while veterans encompass the many people of this great nation, just as in this auditorium today, the one thing that they share is they truly represent the best of what is America. They are a unique and honored family who may have joined the service alone, but they were forged through hard training and arduous experiences into brothers and sisters. Time and time again, when you listen or read the stories of Medal of Honor winners, they speak of serving with their brothers and sisters, and that their efforts were to protect their family. They never point to themselves. They never point to their own efforts. It's this very humble premise that every veteran has, that their service, if you look at the most basic element, it's that they're serving a team. In many of the readings I've found that regardless of when the service was, whether it was World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the largest fear shared by most service members was not their own mortality, but failing their comrades in arms. While much has been written about the sacrifices of veterans, the armed services have discovered through the multiple deployments during the contingency operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, the families of veterans too must be honored. While a service member gets called to perform their duty, the reality is that family serves with them. Although these families try to live their lives quote unquote normally, in the background, they wait nervously for that glorious day when their service member returns and dread that unthinkable moment when you get that knock at the door with condolences from the Secretary of Defense. Until recently, with the formation of the family readiness groups, many of these times, these families waited painfully alone. So too, the families of these veterans should be thanked and honored, for they too sacrificed for this nation, as they know the pains of missed birthdays, missed anniversaries, and all those precious family events that you will never get back. From that same speech that I opened with, President Kennedy said, as we express our gratitude, we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not to utter words, but to live by them. While we collectively pause our busy lives this morning to share in this day and to honor our veterans, let us not make this a once-a-year practice. We owe our veterans more than a moment of silence once a year. We owe them a thank you. So for all the veterans present today, if you are able, please stand. And now, ladies and gentlemen, if you too will stand, please join these veterans and let's take a moment of silence to remember those that are not here today. In closing, let not our words be in vain. Let them bring action. When you're thinking of the sacrifices that have been made to nurture this precious freedom that we all enjoy, and when those sacrifices are being asked of our youngsters, do not just say thank you to a veteran, show it. I want to thank you for your kind attention.